I'm Wanda Craner, a GPC minister and trainer, and the current president of Gestalt Pastoral Care Associates. And this afternoon, I have the joy of introducing to you the Reverend Tilda Norberg, our founder, one who over 45 years ago recognized the value and the necessity of integrating the spiritual with the psychological for a holistic healing way of GPC. So welcome, Tilda. It's great to be with you.
Oh, thank you, Wanda. It's always good to be with you. Until you said 45 years, I just didn't know it was that long. I hadn't thought of it that way. So we've been at this a while, haven't we?
A little bit, indeed.
When I say we, I really do mean we. It's been a we from the very beginning, as as people have kind of caught on to what I was kind of fumbling around with. And then it's been perfected and nuanced by so many others. So I want to say that right up front that this is not my creation by any means. And I think we all need to be proud of ourselves here, of what we have done together.
At the very beginning, you, as most people at the time, that was like in the 1970s, I think, were trying to keep separate the psychological and spiritual in your own healing understandings. And then you had an experience with the word salad man. And you described that experience in your book, Stretch Out Your Hand, Exploring Healing Prayer. Would you tell us about that experience and how that moved you toward blending an approach toward healing?
Well, I was working in a hospital, part-time, a psychiatric hospital, as the Protestant chaplain for 800 people. And so it was an impossible job to do in the time I had, 8 hours for 800 people. But there were certain people that would call me, and they would say, would put in a call for the chaplain. So this guy was one of them. And I don't know how he managed to convey that, because the only way he ever spoke was in word salad. And if you don't know what word salad is, just think of what it might be from the description. It's as if a bunch of English words were put into a box or something and jumbled up. And then you just draw them out randomly and then put them down there and read them off. Sometimes his language was that garbled, so it was very difficult to understand what in the world he was talking about, how he was responding, what he was thinking, what he was feeling. But anyway, he said he wanted to see the Protestant chaplain. So there I go. I go to his bed, and he starts in on the word salad, and I don't understand him, of course. So I take him over to a place that was a little more private than his room that he was sharing with 3 or 4 others. And I put my hands on his head and prayed that God would help him, that God would heal whatever it was inside of him that caused this massive withdrawal and his inability to communicate almost in any way, except by infantile grunts and that kind of thing. And I took my hands off his head, and he then came back with the word salad as strong as ever. And I that was not unexpected, actually, for me. I've worked in the hospital a long time, and that would, you pray and then you expect God to work as God is going to do, but sometimes you don't see much difference. But anyway, the next time I was on that unit where that man lived, a nurse came barreling out the door, and she pointed her finger at my nose. She said, "What did you do to that guy?" Like that, what did you do to that guy? And frankly, I hadn't even recalled having talked to him, because I was trying to see a zillion patients every day, and I would just kind of go from place to place. Anyway, so she tells me that that he started talking normally, perfectly normally. And it turned out it was the day after I had been there, and she said, well, she and the psychiatrist and everybody else said, "What happened to you? how did this happen? And he pipes up with, the Protestant chaplain prayed for me.
The jig was up at that point.
And, you know, I had learned to pray with some expectation. I had done healing services, and I'd seen a lot of improvement with some people, and it was usually gradual.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was not gradual.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in that hospital, I think, decades, maybe 20 years. I'm not sure how long.
Mm-hmm.
But it was some kind of long period like that. And then he was discharged a week later. They couldn't find any reason to keep him. So I put that in my pipe. Yeah, I've got to do something with this. I don't know just what.
Yeah.
But what that did start in me was a less timid way of praying, and of just, you know, praying for what I thought was right, and just, you know, praying for healing rather than improvement, and being a little more bold about it.
It sounded as if when this happened, there was something, it was so powerful that God was saying to you, you need to pay attention to this. This
Yes.
belongs, you know, together. So to speak.
Together. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was told, I mean, because they knew in the hospital that I was a therapist, and I was really warned against doing anything therapeutic. I wasn't supposed to do anything therapeutic with anybody. And I mean, I don't know how you turn off that faucet exactly, but I was really trying to keep in mind what they were saying to me, at least, and not getting into what I thought was therapeutic areas.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me enough of a push that I started to pray for people who were coming to see me privately, under my guise as a therapist. And I noticed that with them, there was a noticeable leap. There were noticeable leaps, I'd have to say. There's usually not a quick fix.
I remember you sharing a story one time of being with a group of physicians, and they were asking you in terms of definitions and so forth and so on, and that was a growing edge at that time too, because it was hard to put language around this, because it really is a different thing, a new thing, new way to think in many ways.
Exactly. Yeah, we're used to having little, you know, kind of categories and boxes and specializing and all that, and I think that's all to the good, except that something was pulling together to become a new thing, a new one thing. And I really struggled with how to say it so that I wouldn't come off as a quick fixer, you know, so that people wouldn't imagine that this was a fad, you know, or something like that. I didn't want to attract a lot of attention to it, yet I wanted to be clear. And so, you know, I wrote this book called Consenting to Grace, which is the textbook for the training program now. But that thing took me 10, 15 years to write, just because I was having to struggle with those two issues: how to communicate that this was a new synthesis that was a thing by itself. I think they just don't separate very well, because people of faith don't separate them.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working with people of faith, there are emotional issues and there's spiritual issues. I was about to say get tangled, and that's how it often starts. But when all that gets integrated, it becomes a new whole. It becomes an expression of who that person was created to be, and I love seeing that. I love seeing that happen. You know, it really is a happening rather than something that anybody does, except for the person who's working, and certainly God is in charge of this, because I believe this is a healing ministry. And then we've just found some ways to maybe cooperate with God's healing vision for each person, I'd rather say.
What this brings to mind for me is, as we participated in this recent research, there were a lot of research groups that were still keeping the spiritual separate from the clinical in a way, you know, that Gestalt pastoral care doesn't. It's so integrated and blended. It's such a both and, rather than the quote that comes to me that you have shared many times, is that it's not just therapists adding a little prayer to it,
Mm-hmm.
or ministers adding a little Gestalt work to it. It really is a unique a blend. And I think one of the things that I sense over the years too is that what's very important is the attitude and the presence of the person that is the Gestalt pastoral care minister, the contemplative, and you speak about that in your in consenting to grace specifically. How important that is to just kind of be tuning in to what God is doing and being very present with a person. So it has a uniqueness about it that's hard to describe, I think, sometimes.
It is hard to describe often.
Yeah, and yet it's so powerful. And what I appreciate in what you have shared, especially in consenting to grace, is that you have been able to teach it in a way that it's accessible for people who really have a sense of call or a sense of vocation around this. So each person can bring that blend together from their own uniqueness too. What do you envision in the future? What might be some of your hopes and dreams as Gestalt pastoral care continues to be taught and lived out and is a healing avenue?
I keep thinking about CPE. Do you know? Some people who are listening will know what that is. Clinical pastoral education, which is often a requirement in seminary or by a denomination, and it's actually advanced one-on-one supervision of a chaplaincy program where you learn to be a chaplain. You're set into a hospital where you become a chaplain intern, and your job is to learn how to be a chaplain to people in crisis. And then there are lots of process groups that go along with that, and there's lots of analyzing what would have been better and so on. I would love to see GPC, I mean, be seen as a legitimate fulfillment of the requirement of chaplaincy training. That would be wonderful.
I do know that some chaplain supervisors, clinical pastoral education supervisors, are introducing GPC, and that has been fascinating to me as I hear them. They see the value of it, and I'm hoping that God will work and integrate that structure in ways too. I want to thank you for your faithfulness in consenting to God's grace on this whole journey, and in saying yes to God as you pioneered and developed with others, okay, Gestalt pastoral care. And it is a way that's been has touched many for healing, and I trust for many more to come. So God bless you, dear.
Oh, God bless you right back. Thank you, Wanda. This has been fun.
Hey, thanks for sharing with all of us on this special day